Fidel Castro lo que no estaba dispuesto a hacer concesiones ni a cambiar nada, porque temía todo esto que puede ocurrir.
Our lunchtime speaker today was Carlos Alberto Montaner. He is a very renowned Cuba expert and columnist from Nuevo Herald. And what he spoke about was a very, very important cataclysmic shift that occurred this week in Cuba, where the Cuban government announced that they're going to lay off 500,000 people. That's about 10% of the workforce. And they're going to let those people start their own businesses. It may sound kind of routine, especially in our country where we're used to layoffs and we're used to those kinds of announcements in this economy. But in Cuba, that's really, really huge. It's a big deal. I mean, people have only worked for the government all this time. And now all of a sudden they're going to have to learn how to fend for themselves. Carlos Alberto Montaner is definitely an anti-Castro figure in the community. There's no question about that. So his opinion wasn't a huge surprise. He does not think that this push toward private enterprise is going to work. For one thing, he said something that was really interesting. He quoted a French philosopher who said that regimes that try to change are the ones that collapse. I thought that was a good point. He said the ones that just sort of sit there indifferent in front of the disaster might survive longer. And to him, what was a really big deal is that they're starting to, he called it de-Fidelization. They're starting to de-Fidelize Cuba while Fidel Castro is still alive. He says it's a huge blow to Fidel Castro because he's still alive, because this is his legacy. In 1968, it was Fidel Castro who closed, I believe it was 60,000 businesses, and now all of a sudden they're going to shift gears. Well, not all of a sudden, 40 years later, they're going to shift gears. And they're going to shift gears and say, you know what, the economic model that we've been preaching, that we've been demanding all these years, well, you know what, we've just realized that it doesn't work, and we're going to have to get all these people off the payroll because the economic situation is so bad that this country just cannot survive with the Marxist system. The other point that Mr. Montaner made is that he doesn't think it's going to work because there's just no infrastructure in Cuba for this to work. There isn't a big lending program. There aren't ways to make investments. So if you're a shoemaker and you don't have the leather and you don't have the glue and you don't have the funding, well, what are you supposed to do? Who do you go to? They tried this year with the agriculture system, and they gave lots of land to farmers. And agriculture output declined this year in Cuba. And it declined because they didn't have the tractors, they didn't have all the right seeds, and the government just can't stop meddling. They can't stop regulating. And unless, analysts have all agreed, that unless the Cuban government can stop this, can stop sort of tinkering in all the things that they do, that this new program will not work.